Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? What I have for you today in this video is I want to give you guys a review of the 2016 Chevrolet Colorado that I've been driving here for a couple years. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, at the time, this particular model of the Colorado, you had 4 different trim levels to choose from. You had the base model, the WT model, which is the work truck model, the LT, and then you have the Z71. Now, this current model that we are looking at here is the LT. The exterior color that you see on this current truck that I have is known as the Cyber Gray. And at the time, you had a couple different options to choose for bed options. In this case, I have the short box. Otherwise, the other option that you could have opted for is the long box, which you would have a longer bed than this one that you see over here. So the short box that we currently see can hold 41.3 cubic feet of items in the bed itself. And as far as the size, it's 57.8 inches wide and 62.7 inches long. That's just the bed itself. Now, I do have some slight modifications on the truck currently. So if you'll notice, and modifications meaning like this is stuff that does not come stock with the truck. So I do have a window reflector right here. So that way I can keep the windows slightly open, which they currently are right now, for any rainy weather conditions as well as snow. Another modification that I have is that for my headlights, I have 2 HID headlights, low beams, and the fog lights are also HID. Of course, we have another window reflector for the passenger side. And then towards the license plate area, I have 2 LED lights. And then of course, another modification is inside the truck is interior LED lights. Now, one thing that I want to mention is the headlights. You would normally get like the halogen lights stock, as well as like the stock license plate lights and the interior lights as well. But I had those changed out with the help of someone and was able to get them switched out to LEDs, HIDs, etc. Now, if we look up close on the wheel right here, these are 17-inch aluminum wheels with the Goodyear Wrangler tires. And these are all-season tires. Pretty good for both the warm weather in the summer and spring, as well as the winter. There is a particular package on this truck currently, which is the LT Convenience Package. For exterior features, you do have remote start. So if we took a look at the key fob over here, or the remote, for example, you do notice that there is a remote starter button over there. And to activate remote start, you just basically hit the lock button and then hold onto the start button over here. All right, and then to stop the remote start, you just basically press it again to shut it down. And with that package, you also do have the easy lift tailgate over here. So say for instance, if I were to unlock the tailgate and then open it, you can see that it kind of drops down casually, and it's not just gonna slam right down compared to the older trucks. And here's what the inside of the bed looks like over here. And let's go ahead and close it up. And then of course, with the LT Convenience Package, you do have the trailing package over here. And then of course, you have an automatic locking rear differential on the back, which is right in front of the spare tire. As far as the engine, you do have a 3.6 liter V6, and keep in mind this is the 4x4 model, so this does come equipped with all-wheel drive, and the engine is direct injection with variable valve timing, which puts out 305 horsepower at 6,800 RPMs, and then of course 269 pound-feet of torque at 4,000 RPMs. Fuel economy wise, you get 17 miles per gallon in the city and 24 on the highway. And both of those combined, you could get about 20 miles per gallon altogether. And this tows about 7,700 pounds with a 6-speed automatic transmission. Okay, so a little bit change of setting right here, but let's go ahead and take a look at the interior of the 2016 Chevrolet Colorado. And as you can see, we have the jet black cloth interior. And if you wanted the leather seats, you would have to get the luxury package of the LT, as well as upgrading to the Z71. And as you can see on the doors right here, we have your window controls, which All windows are automatic down, but the only one that's automatic up is the driver. You have your power mirror controls right here to adjust your mirrors. Then of course you have the electronic child door lock, as well as disabling the back windows from being operated by the back passengers. And then of course you have additional storage over here with a cup holder over here. Obviously you have your controls for dimming your interior lights on your dash. And then of course you have your headlight and fog light controls, your four-wheel drive controls right here. And let's go ahead and jump into the driver's seat here. And upon shutting the door, sounds pretty solid. Then of course here is your steering wheel right here, and on the left side here you have your turn signal toggle, and then on the right side here you have your windshield wiper controls. And then of course going over to the middle right here, this is where most of your action happens with entertainment, and this is where you would have the Chevy mileage system and operate it from. And obviously you have your radio controls, which I did a separate video demonstrating this as well, so feel free to check that out as well. Then of course you have your climate controls over here. Now this is not the automatic climate control setup, so obviously this is a manual setting right here. So obviously you have your fan speed right here, and then of course you have your different settings on how you want your air to flow. And then of course you have air circulation, so you have your temperature control over here. Then of course over there you have your glove box. Down here you have the option of turning off the track control, as well as turning on the cargo light switch, and then of course your towing button right here. And we look at the center console, you have additional cup holders over here as well, along with your shifter for your transmission, additional storage right here. And in the center console, you have a USB port, which I have a flash drive plugged in there currently right there. That's basically how I listen to my music on a daily basis right here. And just wanted to make a quick side note over here. You do have an additional USB port with an auxiliary port, and then of course your cigarette lighter as well. So let's go ahead and jump onto the back seat. So the back seat right here is pretty simple. Additional storage right here, along with your window switch right here. So like I said before, automatic down, but automatic up is not available on this particular window right here. And then of course here is the back seat right here. And what's interesting about the back seat is if you were to lift this, pull this lever right here, and then try to pull the seat up, just one hand, there we go, you have additional storage spaces right here. And then of course bring it down. What's nice about these headrests over here is that you can flip these up or flip them back up or down. Push it down to flip it down, so that way you have better visibility if you don't have any backseat passengers. So let's go ahead and jump into the backseat right here. Now my height is 5'11", about 71 inches, and as you can see I do have a decent amount of leg room over here, and this is sitting behind my current seating position whenever I'm driving on a daily basis, and it's not too bad. Although comparing this to the Silverado and the GMC Sierra, obviously backseat space is kind of cramped, but it's not too bad. For like long road trips, you definitely don't want somebody driving that's taller than me, otherwise their seat will be touching your knees over here. But it's not too bad. And then as far as the headroom's concerned, this is how much headroom I have left, so it's not too bad. And you'll notice that they have this concave design over here to accommodate your head as well. If we look in the middle over here, you do have additional USB ports and then a cigarette lighter as well. So let's go ahead and hop on out of here. Check out the passenger side of the back seat right here. So same deal over here, same storage options, another cup holder, window operation right here. And then of course, if we lift this side over here, you do get the additional storage, which on this side is sharing the storage space as that seat over there as well. And then of course you have the same option as adjusting your headrest as well. Now, with the LT convenience package, as far as the interior wise, you do get some pretty neat features right here. So if you look in the middle, you have a rear sliding window, which is a manual sliding window, not electronic, but you basically just have to push on this lever right here and then pull it to the left. Then you open this window over here, and then of course push it back as well. You do have the rear window defroster with the LT convenience package, and you do have a Bose audio system as well, along with the Chevy MyLink system. And that is pretty much the interior of the 2016 Colorado here. Let's go ahead and check the front passenger side. So as you can see, storage is about the same as the driver's side. Again, with less window controls, power door locks over here. And as you can see, I make use of the storage space. Now, what's interesting is on the passenger side, you have a manual sliding passenger seat over here versus the electronic power seat on the driver's side over there. Very common for trucks, but it's pretty neat. Now, with this truck, there were some optional accessories that I got. So, first one that I have is the tonneau cover over here with the Chevy logo, came straight from the dealership. Then you have the exhaust tip over here with the Chevy logo on it, pretty nice. And then of course the mud flaps over here, so that way if I'm going through a puddle or if I'm going through mud and it gets splashed, it's going to hit the mud flap first before getting anywhere else in the truck right here. And what's nice is that you have these side steps over here, so when you need to get up onto the bed, you got easier access to get up and then get into your bed over here. Okay, so let's go over the steering wheel controls over here. So on the left side here, you basically have your cruise control settings. So turn cruise control on, adjust the speed to go up or go down. And then of course you can shut it down as well. Your traditional horn. And then you have your voice command button over here, along with the cancel button. Or if you're on a phone call through Bluetooth, this is your hang up button as well. Check mark is basically your selection button whenever you're controlling the screen on your instrument cluster over here. And then of course you have the up down arrows with the left and right arrows as well. And let's go ahead and take a look at the settings that you have over here. So if we wanted to hit the left arrow on the steering wheel, you're taken to a few different options here. Let's start with info first. So then you would just hit the check mark to select it. And then of course, using your up down arrows, you have a little scroll bar over there. So in this case, you have your digital speedometer in miles per hour. Trip A and Trip E, this is basically to show you your average fuel economy as well as the distance you've driven. And then of course, if you click on the right arrow to get into the menu on the right side, you have a few different options as well, basically to just reset it. The settings vary on like what extra settings that you have. The amount of miles you have left before you go down to 0 miles on empty. It's instant fuel economy, shows you what fuel economy you are getting as of now. This is always changing. Oil life lets you know how much oil that you have, and then you hit the right button over here to reset it. Whenever you do your oil changes, especially if you do them on your own, you can reset the oil life from there. Tire pressure gauge tells you how much PSI is in all 4 of your tires. Battery voltage. And then here's your oil pressure. And then it gives you the temperature of your transmission fluid. Alright, and then you go into the last one here. There's nothing. And then of course you hit the down arrow again. It takes you all the way back up to the top. Now let's go into audio here, which basically just gives you the name of the song that's currently playing right now from whichever device. So in this case I have the USB drive. And of course if I hit the right arrow over here, you have a few different options of changing which media device you want to play from. You can browse your device as well, like so. And then you have your favorites, which depending on which device that you have. Although I don't think the USB flash drive had that. Phone. So basically if you have a Bluetooth device, it shows you your battery life of your phone and then the signal strength that you have. And if you hit the arrow on the right, you can basically access a few different options, your recent calls, your contacts, all loaded from your phone. And if we go to navigation here, you can resume your guidance or prompt it for a voice prompt. And this basically tells you like which direction you're going and maybe give you like a basic overview of when your next turn is if you do have a GPS route set. And then of course we have options right here, basically to change the settings around. And you can change it either from the US metric system or just go to the traditional metric system that was outside of the US. Other than that, that's pretty much the options that you have for this little screen right here on your instrument cluster. So you have your traditional signs on which gear you're in with your transmission, and then it tells you which direction you're facing. So you have your traditional RPM gauge, your traditional speedometer, you have your fuel gauge and your temperature gauge as well. Okay, so now we are currently on the road with the 2016 Chevrolet Colorado, and we're going to be taking a look to see what the driving experience is like with this truck. So let's go ahead and take a look to see how she sounds. So as you can hear, like when you really step on the throttle, you can definitely hear the engine for sure out of this V6 engine over here with 305 horsepower. And obviously with a V8, it probably would have sounded a lot louder. But in regards to like the noise, when you're just driving on the road, it's fairly quiet. I mean, obviously, if you don't step on the throttle all the time and trying to abuse it, but when you're just driving naturally and just cruising on the road, whether you're doing it on the highway and on local roads like we are right now, very quiet, I must say. The noise reduction has definitely improved a lot as vehicles are released throughout the years, because I remember back in the day, even like the early 2000s, with a V8 engine, you can really hear them big time. And now with V8 engines that are coming out these days, you can barely hear them unless if you were to put like aftermarket parts on their exhaust system and then a Pro Charger, you name it. As far as the ride quality is concerned, let's put this into the fact first. This is a truck, and as everyone says, trucks are built a little bit differently compared to cars and SUVs, so the ride quality and the suspension could be a little harsh at times. However, I will say that the Chevrolet Colorado that I'm driving right now, it's not as harsh as maybe some of the other trucks that have like a full off-road package. With these all-season tires that I have, steering is like responsive, and it's definitely sensitive, but not as sensitive as like some of the sedans that you would drive and some of the SUVs, because some steerings on certain cars can either be too stiff or it could be too sensitive. This one, I would say, is pretty much in the middle. Now, because it's a truck, it'll also depend on if you have your bed fully loaded or not. In this case, I currently don't have anything loaded in the bed right now. I normally don't on a daily basis, maybe once a while if I have to haul anything, but with the bed not loaded, the ride quality could be a little bit bouncy on certain times, especially if you're going on a bumpy road, or if you're like going uphill and then it's not very smooth or flat. So we're actually going uphill a little bit right here, and it is a little bit on a curve right here. And just from going on that, slowly accelerating to 30 miles an hour, it did bounce a little bit. Now we're gonna go over a bump. So the ride quality can be a little bouncy at times if you don't have anything loaded in the bed. But is it terrible? No, not really. I would imagine if you were in a truck that was built for off-road, then you definitely feel a big difference within the ride quality. Because for instance, people are saying the Toyota Tacoma, which is a competitor of this truck right here, feels more like a truck, whereas the Colorado and the GMC Canyon feels in between a truck and a traditional car. And then the Honda Ridgeline feels more like a car than it does a truck. There are different variables out there. Each truck does feel a little bit different, even though they serve the same purpose and they're in the same category. It just depends on how they're built. So the ride quality, I would say, is not too bad. Now, as far as cruising around, is it comfortable? It's pretty comfortable, but obviously not something that you would find in like a Mercedes S-Class or even the full-size trucks, the Chevy Silverado and the GMC Sierra, because these seats are pretty comfortable, but there could be times where they may not be comfortable. Obviously, there's one big difference that you'll notice between a truck and a car or a SUV is that most of the time the seats that you find in trucks might not be as comfortable as what you would find in a traditional car and SUV. Now, I have the LT trim level in this truck, and the interior, obviously it's not very luxurious, but it is a pretty nice interior to be in. That being said, with this being a smaller truck compared to the Chevy Silverado and the GMC Sierra, maybe sometimes you may feel a little bit cramped when you sit into this truck for the first time, but after driving it for a long period of time and owning the truck for a decent amount of time, it feels pretty normal. And then when you jump into the big trucks, then it'll feel big again. But depending on how you feel about the segment at the beginning, that's how you're able to determine how you're gonna feel over the next couple of months. And I will say the driving experience of this truck was a great experience, and currently have like over 23,000 miles on this truck right now. How does this truck drive when it comes to the snow and winter conditions? Because obviously you guys have seen a few of my vlogs where I have taken this thing out in the snow and did certain things with it. How does the four-wheel drive system work, and how does it compare to what you would find in the car and the SUV? I will say this though, the four-wheel drive system is different compared to what I've experienced in the car and the SUV, because if I was driving those, normally you don't have like this little knob down here to control your four-wheel drive systems, because some of them are automatic, some of them have the car set in either front or rear wheel drive automatically, but then the all-wheel drive system kicks in automatically when it detects slippage, like Subarus for example. With this having a dial switch and then controlling which mode you want to stay in all the time, if you're in four-wheel drive high in the snow, and if you're also driving in that mode in dry pavement like we are right now, except for the four-wheel drive system that's not engaged right now, when you make a turn, you'll hear some sort of noise from the transfer case. Not only that, but when you're turning, it will feel a little bit tight, and sometimes when it feels a little bit tight, you might have to give the truck some gas in order to even move. Whereas here I am right now driving in rear-wheel drive. If I was making that turn or not even stepping on the throttle, and if it's on a flat surface, the truck will obviously still move a little bit slowly. The four-wheel drive system can actually put the truck at a complete stop unless you give it more gas. So it's as if I had actually stepped on the brake, but I didn't. My foot is not on the brake or the gas pedal at all. But overall, it handles the snow very well. The SUVs and the cars with four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive are also good. I just noticed that this one, the turns can be a little bit stiffer, and believe it or not, I think that's a good thing. So if you're concerned about driving this thing in the snow and that you don't want to spend a lot of money on winter tires, because I've never put winter tires on this thing before, there's nothing to be worried about as long as you're being safe on the snow and that you're very alert when driving in the snow. Otherwise, you can feel free to put some winter tires on this truck, and then when you're driving out in the snow, you're gonna have no issues whatsoever, and you'll be able to stop a lot quicker. And if you're driving at slower speeds and you needed to stop, you know, you're definitely gonna stop a lot quicker for sure. Now, how about visibility in here? Because obviously it's a mid-sized truck, and you're gonna have a smaller windshield compared to what you would find in a full-size truck. It's pretty decent right here, and I don't have any blind spots that are hard to look at, versus if you were driving a Suburban, for example. When you're trying to look back on your blind spots, the Suburban normally has like a little cover for your airbag system in between the back passenger doors and the back windows. With that big piece in the way, it could be a little bit difficult to see your blind spot. Now, the benefit with a truck is that you have the option of putting a bed cap on the back of your truck or not. Otherwise, if you don't have a bed cap, your blind spot is not going to be an issue at all. And I would imagine that for the big trucks, it shouldn't be an issue at all. And if you were to have the towing mirrors versus the standard mirrors, where you can actually see the bottom in order to see your wheels, then that should make your visibility a lot better as well. One thing I did notice is that the windshield is a little bit curved more towards coming in. I would have liked it to be pushed out a little bit just to get a little bit more visibility, because I noticed that if, let's say if I was the very first vehicle over here at the traffic light, and I'm at a red light. If I were to move this truck all the way up to the line but don't go over, I do find myself needing to bend my head down a little bit just so I can see the traffic light. Otherwise, this headliner over here is getting in the way and I can't even see the traffic light. Now, that's just a little minor issue about this truck. It could be because that I'm just too tall for this truck, which could be a good part of the reason why I might feel like from time to time that things could be a little bit small. But if you were to put me in a sedan or a car that was a lot smaller than a standard SUV, then I would imagine that the visibility would be a lot worse for me, and I would just have a hard time looking out on the road, because I have driven smaller cars before, and I will say for the smaller size vehicle, this would be a great fit for me. Now, let's talk about the fuel economy. At one point, after filling up a full tank of gas, driving about 12 miles from my house down to the workplace, I was actually averaging about 22 miles per gallon, and that's just me cruising on the road without being so abusive on the throttle, on the gas or the brake. That's with me not being abusive to it and not driving like a maniac. And that's a pretty good mile per gallon rate. And then of course, if you were to do the same thing on the highway, I would imagine that it would have been higher. I haven't tracked that, unfortunately, but I would imagine that it still gets pretty good gas mileage for a 6-cylinder engine. And another benefit too is that with the 6-speed automatic transmission, the way it shifts gears, it could get up to third gear pretty quickly if you just have it in automatic mode. Otherwise, you do have the option of putting it in manual, so that way you can shift it to whichever gear that you want. But the reason why it does that is to get you the best fuel economy. Now, for some people, they probably wouldn't care about that. Me personally, for a daily driver, it would help a little bit. But as far as like for a vehicle that I just want to enjoy my weekends on and get away from town for a little bit, the gas mileage wouldn't matter for me at that point. But for a daily driver and for a V6 model, the fuel economy, I'm pretty sure you'll be satisfied with it. And if you want to get even better fuel economy but still have the benefit of a truck, there's also a 4-cylinder option as well at lower trim levels. And with that 4-cylinder engine, you do have the option of getting a manual transmission on there if you wanted to. Me personally, the first time I've actually seen that, I was a little surprised and was thinking, why would somebody want a manual in a truck? But I guess it works for anyone, right? That loves to drive stick. But with the smooth shifts, definitely makes the ride quality pretty decent in this truck and makes it an enjoyable experience just for daily driving. So, who do I recommend this truck to? And who would need something like this? For a particular truck like this, you have two types of trucks out there. Obviously the mid-size truck, and then you have the full-size truck. Now, full-size truck within General Motors' lineup, you obviously have the Chevy Silverado and the GMC Sierra. And the mid-size segment, you have the GMC Canyon and the Chevy Colorado that we're driving right now. And then of course you have the newer ones out there, same body style, but with 3 extra horsepower, because they have like 308 horsepower in the V6. And then of course you have the 8-speed automatic transmission. Those are for the 2018 and 2017 models. That being said, this kind of truck is basically for someone who wants to have a truck but doesn't want anything too big. Now, why is that? Because maybe they don't need to haul a lot of stuff, and not only that, they don't want to deal with the issues that you would have in a big truck of trying to find a parking space or trying to park properly in a space, because with a bigger vehicle, you do have a little bit more difficulty when it comes to maneuvering in turns as well as parking. Now, comparing this to a standard SUV, when it comes to turning and parking, it is already a little bit difficult for someone that drives a truck for the first time, which that happened to me as soon as I got this truck. And after driving it for a while and learning about, okay, how I should turn and how I should park, how to make use of my mirrors and the rear backup camera, since there's no rear parking sensors on this truck, I was able to get used to it no problem. Although I am still working on pulling in properly, because I do notice that when I pull in, I'm still a little bit too close to the left side versus being centered in the parking space. So if you're having troubles with those right now in a mid-size truck, stick with a mid-size truck for now and learn how to properly make all these adjustments. And once you master it, and if you want to go into a full-size truck one day, then you'll be able to take those skills, take it into the full-size truck, and just adjust depending on the size of the truck that you get. Now, if I have a preference on which one that I wanted, I would probably still get the full-size truck, because I just love having a big vehicle But however, for those of you guys that are on the fence, or maybe you want a truck that's just for daily driving, the Chevy Colorado is a perfect daily driver, or I should say one of the perfect daily drivers out there, depending on your needs. If you need a truck and you need the benefit of having a bed in the back, then this is the truck for you. So what do you guys think about the Chevy Colorado? Do you like it, hate it? Curious to see what you guys have to say in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, rate, comment. Also check out the description below for my social media links, Twitter and Instagram. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.